Welcome to Three, a part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. I'm Gil Gross with Amy Lundy. Joel Drucker not with us for this one for the best possible of reasons. He is at Wimbledon. We will be benefiting from his enhanced insights from being on site, and we look forward to that. But for now, Joel trying to get settled in over in the UK at Wimbledon. So just me and Amy for this draw preview. Amy, we didn't know if we were going to have Novak in Wimbledon playing, and I mean, a couple weeks ago we talked about it, and all of us were thinking, probably not.
Yeah, I'm down in South Carolina and I didn't travel with my headset because was certain he was not going to take this risk. I mean, I know that people can come back from a torn meniscus, and I know that he has all the newest technology and all the best advice and all that available to him, but his stated goal has always been the Olympics. So the risk and you and I, Gil, we kind of quibbled about injuries in the last podcast on grass. And I saw a match the other day where Caroline Wozniacki hyperextended her knee slipping on the grass. There probably is a higher risk of injury on grass. So I was just so sure that we weren't going to have a show to do, really. But now it looks like he's in the draw and it looks like he's going to do it.
Yeah, once he traveled to Wimbledon, that wasn't really a sure thing, but I think once he started hitting with top players and I'm going to go out with Sinner, and now I'm playing an exhibition match with Medvedev. At that point, it's okay. Clearly the eyes are on the prize here. And then Novak said in his comments today, quote, "I'm 37 years old. Maybe someone would want to take less risk and prepare for the Olympics. I have the feeling of not missing a Grand Slam as long as I can play. I wouldn't call it fear of missing something. I just have an incredible desire to play, to compete, especially since it's Wimbledon, the tournament that has always been a dream for me. The simple idea of missing Wimbledon wasn't right. I didn't want to deal with that." Um, all right, I'll end it there. He goes on to talk a little bit more about his knee injury. He does say that the last 3 days have made me optimistic that I can compete at the highest level. I think there's been a lot of shock about it. You said it about the meniscus surgery. The timeline was always somewhat realistic that he could get back, especially depending on the nature of the meniscus surgery. We saw Taylor Fritz do it, and that was kind of the benchmark, and Novak had even more time than Taylor Fritz. It's just the Olympics calculus that made this feel very like uncertain. But at the same time, if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. Like, I get that, right? If you're healthy, you don't miss Wimbledon. That's the logic, right?
It sounds like it's straight up FOMO that he didn't want to be sitting there watching the tournament, knowing that he could compete. So he calls up Taylor Fritz and he says, how did you do it?" And bless Taylor, he told him how he did it, and he gave him the advice and pointed him to some experts and some techniques, and that's good sportsmanship. And
Yeah.
he just didn't like the thought of not doing it. Uh, so he played this practice match against Medvedev. Do you want to go into that? What were your impressions of that?
I really try not to look at exhibition score lines and practice set score lines. And the week before a slam, that's when it's at its worst. Like, that's where people on Twitter are tweeting out these scores, and it's like, oh my God, who cares? But I think the fact that they played two sets and Novak moved well and beat Medvedev. I mean, it's something. It tells me it doesn't tell me much about Djokovic's level or his ability to win Wimbledon. I think it does tell me that he's healthy enough that he wants to play an exhibition match. I think you don't see Andy Murray playing exhibition matches as he tries to heal his little back operation in hopes to get ready for the first round match. So I think it says something about his health, not necessarily his level. Is that fair?
Yeah, I also think it says something about his personality. I mean, he could have gotten hurt in that Hurlingham.
I think
Hurlingham is
yeah, I think
one of
Americans
the
Americans want to say Hurlingham, but Brits
Hurlingham.
would say Hurlingham. Yeah.
Yes, he could have gotten himself hurt there. You know, if you think about it, because it's really just a test. Um, it really is says something about his tenacity and the fact that in the overall risk calculation, he's saying, I've already done all this amazing stuff. If I were to get hurt and not be able to play again today, it would probably be okay. But why not? If I'm healthy and I'm 37, seize the day. So
He
good for
also
him. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say he definitely takes pride in the health stuff and the body stuff and the recovery. It's him and Tom Brady. They remind me of each other, right? Like Brady retires, he launches TB13. He's like, I am so prideful in my ability to keep my body right that I'm actually going to essentially sell a program that teaches you my ways. That's how much pride Tom Brady took in taking care of his body and not getting injured. And I think Novak is cut from that same cloth where he probably tears his meniscus and he's like, "Ooh, this is a challenge." Like I think he loves the fact that he's shocking the world with his recovery.
And he and Tom Brady are friends, and I'm sure they compare notes. And he's got the hyperbaric chambers, which has been proven to work, by the way. So he's got the best of the best. So why not? He's only going to be 37 once. That said, I have some friends that were at the Hurlingham match, and I had them send me some video so I could really look at it and just training the camera on Novak's lower body so I could really pick it apart. Do you want me to tell you my
Yeah.
impressions?
Yeah, tell me.
It's not quite 100% Novak. My impression was that when he was in kind of he had just hit the ball, so he's in recovery, or when he's going toward a ball, maybe to his right, there was just a millisecond delay in the push off. And I don't know if that's he's testing it or if it's a stability thing or whatever. It's just I'm nitpicking and I'm slowing things down. And I've watched Novak play so much that I know my mind and my eye seems to know what silky smooth Novak is versus not so smooth. So I just saw this tiny little thing. So if you are playing best of five matches and the natural surface of the grass is constantly changing due to weather, due to wear and tear, bumps, you know, and you got to be like lightning fast. I'm just wondering in the latter stages of the tournament when he would have to play, you know, one of the top four players, would he hold up? And he says that he doesn't want to play the tournament unless he thinks he can win it. So those were my impressions for what it's worth. I've been wrong before.
I just think it's hard to tell if it's exhibition mode, and
Yeah.
that's why we're not seeing the same kind of push off. Because I think every player and people get confused about this. So I guess I should also flesh this out. It's like why can't players just in an exhibition play like it's a real match at a major? And it's just, no, it's not how psychology works. You know, there's no consequences. So you're not going to be as stressed. You're not going to put yourself through the same kind of physical exertion or push your limits physically. You may be a little bit more uh, careful with how you're treating your body in these kinds of situations. So as even if you want to be like, I'm going to practice like I play, these are pros who step on court for 40 weeks out of the year and play for tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands, and then sometimes millions of dollars. You can't make it so that their brain feels the same in an exhibition, you know?
Right. It's impossible. Right down to the molecules in the air are different, and the psychology is different, and the conditions are different, and there's more on the line. And yeah, you can't replicate. I agree with that.
So I guess the question, even if he's not 100%, as we look to the draw, is can this also be a situation that we've seen many times where, all right, you don't need to be firing on all cylinders throughout the first week because there's enough of a skill gap, there's enough of a talent gap where you're able to figure out a way. And then by the time he's through to the second week, maybe things get better, the movement is stronger, and the game is sharper. And in this case, Vít Koprva is Djokovic's first round opponent. Czech Republic. He's never won a tour level match on grass, although he did just come through qualifying impressively. He won actually three setters in Roehampton, except the last round of qualifying is best of 5 sets. In that case, he won a 4 setter against Richard Gasquet, who is playing really good tennis in qualies. But Koprva, world number 123, and not someone who has much of a grass resume at all. Like he's never been in a grass final on even at the futures level or the challengers level. I know there are fewer grass tournaments. So I don't know. I think it's a positive first round match. And then he plays the winner of wild card Jacob Fernley, who did win the Nottingham Challenger on the grass. He's a 22-year-old from Great Britain. Or another qualifier from Spain, Alejandro Moro Canas.
I'm going to pull a John McEnroe. I don't really know these guys. I don't know a lot about them.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think it's favorable for Novak because, of course, those guys are going to be, wowed by the moment. Of course, that's what we said about Luca Nardi as well. But the experience that Novak has, he could probably win those matches on one foot.
Mhm.
So I think it's a favorable draw, at least in the early going.
I agree. And then you look at the third round. So there's now we're dealing with this the first round where you can catch a seed, and you have Tomas Martin Etcheverry, who does most of his damage on clay. He
Right?
plays Luca Nardi, who also severely lacks grass court experience. Obviously, if it's Djokovic Nardi, you would have that built-in storyline there based on what happened at Indian Wells. You have Tiago Monteiro, clay court player, Alexei
No.
Popyrin.
Now
Uh,
that's something, but I mean,
Yes, I think Popperin is a little bit misleading because you're gonna hear okay, he's got a big serve, so he must like grass. But I actually don't think his game's good for grass. I think he likes time on the ball. He likes to run around his backhand. He likes to play from pretty deep in the court. I like
he's got a
Popperin on clay
great
better.
wind up on his forehand, doesn't he?
He totally does. Yep.
Yeah. Um, that guy could give him some, give him a set, just because of the serve. I mean, you'll have a few of those minute 30 kind of service holds. But you are talking about one of the greatest returners ever, and he's got plenty of experience doing it here. It's one of those matches where the real battle within the battle would be second serve points. Um, who knows?
I do have Popperin when I filled out my bracket. That's the third round opponent I made. And this feels like forever ago, but I think Popperin had a point to go up 2 sets to 1 against Djokovic at the Australian Open.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, that was, and it was buoyed by the hometown crowd. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta think that this would be on center, and yeah,
It
it's just center court at Wimbledon is just unlike anything else in tennis. Yeah, there's the British crowd, but it's more about just the royal box and the occasion and the moments of quiet, the British proper quiet in between points. And I After seeing Novak, what I said earlier, notwithstanding about the momentary push off delay, I think I would have Novak in that match.
Yeah, me as well. Next round, fourth round, could be looking at Holger Rune, could be looking at Karen Khachanov, could be looking at defending quarterfinalist Chris Eubanks. And those are really the likely players. It's actually a pretty it's a weak section to the extent that I feel like Rune is a huge winner here. Gets to open against Sun Woo Kwon. There's Paul Jubb and Thiago Zyvac Vilch would be a second round. I think it'll be Rune in the fourth round, but also Holger. You never really know what he's going to get. Like on a bad day, Holger can be really bad. So the fourth round match seems pretty up in the air. Maybe Holger, maybe Khachanov. I'm hoping that it's Rune for my own entertainment purposes because I'm fascinated by the guy and I can't figure out where he's going or what's happening with his career at the moment. So I want to see that matchup happen. But what do you make of the fourth round? Because I also see that I see a possibility that that opens up, that Holger plays a bad match, that maybe Khachanov, who's been a little bit rusty on the grass, 0-2 in the Wimbledon lead up, maybe someone picks him off like a Chris Eubanks. I don't know what's going to happen with the fourth round.
Eubanks would not be a fun opponent. But yeah, it's almost so what you're saying, Gil, is if he can get over this hurdle, then it might be a little bit easier up to the quarterfinal. Is that what you're saying?
I just think there's a possibility that it's not Runa, that it's not Khachanov, and that it's I don't know, it's like Alice or Eubanks. They're playing in the first round. And Chris, you're right. Like Eubanks he's really hard to break. He's not breaking serve this year, and that's been the issue for Eubanks. He's still holding at a really high clip, but he seemed to the return seemed to click last year, grass court season, and he was returning really well, and just hasn't really been able to maintain that. Um,
He's got the one-handed backhand, and his height is the other complicating factor, and it's like he's a little bit feast or famine when you serve to that backhand side.
yeah,
He comes in, and because of his height and wingspan, he's like a Venus flytrap at the net. He gets almost everything, so the points are really short,
yep,
typically. So that would be Novak has played that kind of player a gazillion times. It's just not fun, you
yeah.
know.
I
If Chris is volleying a lot and he's a fantastic touch volleyer and a piercing kind of cut volleyer, then Novak is maybe lunging for some of those low bouncing volleys, and that just wouldn't be fun.
Yeah, I agree. It's not fun, and he shrinks the margins. You probably play tie breaks there. I think what Novak really doesn't want, though, is Holger Rune at his very best in the fourth round. I think any outcome that's not Rune peaking would be a great outcome for Djokovic, and it would, if you look at the full picture, it would make his path to the quarterfinals, I think, look relatively cushy. And then most people have Hurkacz
Yeah,
as
I do.
the quarter. So I have De Minaur. I know that's against the grain. I know that Hurkacz is like the kind of the trendy pick, I would say, even before the draw was made for Wimbledon. I I think De Minaur is a different player this year. I think he's exceptional on grass. I think he's tougher, a mentally tougher player in a best of five set match compared to Hurkacz. And I think he can get some serves back. I think he can get some returns back in play. And that's why I kind of lean De Minaur there, where everybody has Hurkacz because of the serve.
Yeah, I just because of Hurkacz's success at Wimbledon and experience, especially on center, I picked him. Yeah, and
Yeah,
the serve.
no, and it's not easy. I'm not adamant about Demon over Hubie. It's a thinker, but I would like to provoke such thought that maybe Demonor will be the quarterfinalist.
I mean, when in doubt, when I'm looking at a matchup like that, I either look at the serving or the volley skills. And so, yeah, I lean to her Hubie,
Yeah.
Hubie.
Yeah. Hubie and Novak played at Wimbledon last year. Hurkacz served his best. Like it
Mhm.
was an amazing
Remember that
serving.
match?
Yeah. Just incredible serving. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's like, are you going to break? Because if you're not going to break, it's going to be hard to win. So
Yeah.
I do think Hurkacz is better this year than he was last year. I think his ground game is more reliable. Um, particularly his forehand. So it's interesting, but I do think that Novak, being the returner that he is and winning that battle of second serve points that you highlighted with the Popyrin thing, um, I think is always a key against Hurkacz. And then against De Minaur, I don't think there's a lot of things other than high end speed that De Minaur does better than Djokovic.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that about are you going to break serve because I was watching the Fritz match, or I've been watching Fritz a lot actually, and he won today. He won the Eastbourne, and for a while there, a couple matches, Fritz just was not breaking serve, and it's not like Fritz is a serve bot who, like Isner, sorry, John, who just had a real hard time breaking serve. Taylor's return numbers are quite good. He's like top 20 in the return metric, the generic return metric for ATP. So I'm like, what gives? It might have been conditions in Eastbourne. I know it was windy down there or something, but when we talk about the servers, you really do have to look inside. Can these guys return to break? Can
Yeah.
they come off of returns?
Yeah, and I think over the years that's been the separator at Wimbledon because there are a lot of guys in the draw who serve great, but when you look at Murray and Novak, um, and the relative success that they've had at Wimbledon. Rafa, his return style doesn't suit the grass as well, like the way he returns. Obviously, incredible returner. It's just his return style isn't as tailored to grass. And then Federer, actually, in his own way, I think had a great return for grass because the chip returns and the block returns were more effective. So I think effective returning, and I mean, look, obviously they're the best on all surfaces over the years, so it's not much of a statement. But I just think it has been interesting over the years to see big servers make Wimbledon runs, Berrettini, Kyrgios, but then you go up against the elite returner for the first time, and that can be your little roadblock there.
Yeah, that's been the trend in this era, like the big
Yeah.
three. I mean, you go back to Boris Becker. He was a solid returner, but it was the serve. It was the boom boom. I agree. That is the separator. Not just the return itself, as Joel always reminds us, but how do you construct the point after you put the return back in play?
Yeah. All right. So we've kind of gone through the draw. Obviously, it also matters that Alcaraz and Sinner are on the top half. Djokovic is separated from them. If Novak is at his best, which we need to talk about before we end the show, uh, then that's going to matter, right? Because they're the top three. So Novak got was one of them was going to be lucky. One of them, that's what was going to happen. And Novak got the good fortune of being away from them. Who knows who's going to be the semifinalist? I think that Rublev Zverev quarter with Tsitsipas and Fritz and Draper and Korda. I mean, Musetti. There's like a million
No, you didn't
possibilities.
pass. Draper, I'm thinking not yet. Um, who would Gil have picked? Um, who
I
did you?
like this game. I
Yeah,
I picked I picked Zverev.
okay, I did
But
too.
I'll tell you, I was very close to picking Musetti,
Hmm.
just because and it was really mostly about matchups because I don't think Draper is a comfortable matchup for Zverev on the deuce side cross court, like flat low backhand makes Zverev lift up on the forehand attack from there. I think that might be a good match. Um, if I had Draper over Zverev, I would have been kind of tempted to put Musetti, if not Fritz. But you're right. I wasn't close to picking TT. I have Korda over Tsitsipas. Um, actually, it's who knows? It's going to be a really interesting quarter. Zverev has never played well at Wimbledon. I do think this might be the year. He's serving better than he ever has served, and
I
he
started
has
looking
that.
at
Go ahead.
Zverev's numbers and I had to pick him. Um, yeah, I just I wanted to pick someone else just because I think he's struggling with not being able to get over the Grand Slam hump, and it was a tough loss to Alcaraz in the final of Roland Garros.
Mhm.
And you know, you look at the guy's stats, and he's just playing so well in all areas of the game, and he's coming in more, and that's a key skill to have. That's another separator here. Can you finish at the net with a volley? You know, because the right proper volley is going to skid, and that's just going to emphasize the low bounce even more.
Yeah, no, he definitely volleys way better than he used to over the years when he had those Wimbledon struggles. And I also think he's at least more committed to hitting his forehand down the line. I think it got him into big trouble on grass at times where he'd just go cross, cross, cross. And it's like, come on, it's grass. You got to redirect, change direction, do some damage. So we'll see. You know, Fritz wins Eastbourne again, so he comes into Wimbledon with some positive sensations. Korda had a great grass court lead in, as did Musetti. Um, it's kind of the quarter of mystery. Anyway, let's talk about expectations for Djokovic. We talked about how we're surprised that, but we have two pieces of the puzzle in place now. We're surprised he's playing, but also not surprised because, you know, the recovery was always a possibility. And it is hard to say no to Wimbledon if you're healthy. I think we've kind of landed on the draw, if anything, is going to help his cause, not hurt his cause. But then the question is, how well can he play? What level can he achieve? Is he a true title contender?
Oh, I hate to go against him. I really do. I mean, you guys know me. Like for the French Open, I think I picked him to win just because I could or something like that. But in this particular situation, after having seen the video from yesterday, knowing it's best of five, and knowing that his own stated goal is the Olympics, which that doesn't maybe consciously enter your head, but maybe it does subconsciously, and also knowing Sinner and Alcaraz. Sinner just won Hala. He could not be playing better. Alcaraz is the defending champion. He's got quick hands of gold. These guys are developing into titans. I just have this feeling that this is not Djokovic's slam, but all the respect in the world for him for competing. You
Mhm.
know, like of course that's why we do this show, for reasons like this, that he's saying I'm going to compete.
We're reversing roles because
Yes, we are.
at the French, I had Rude beating Djokovic in the quarters. Who knows if I would have been right or not had the knee thing not popped up? Who knows? But this time I went ahead and picked Djokovic. Um, at Roland Garros, I think we had an interesting experience of all of these health question marks coming in, and most of them were brushed aside as not that big a deal. And it's not that I'm going purely off of that, but I I am the logic in my head regarding the health thing is that he would not be playing if the knee wasn't good. I wouldn't see a point in that. And the fact that he's playing practice sets and playing exhibitions again, it just tells me I don't think he's coming in hobbled. I just don't. Now, I would be concerned about his preparation or his physicality. Grass is not a surface that I'm going to be worried about the physical side, and it's the clay where I worry about sometimes the stamina, sometimes the explosivity, sometimes the durability. But grass for me is more of a skills contest. It's a skills competition, right? And that's where I'm not going to go against Novak here with the benefit of the better draw. The fact, he's made 5 straight Wimbledon finals. I think the gap between Djokovic and his grass court skill has been on display in the last 5 years so vividly. And then, there was one match, obviously the Alcaraz final last year, that certainly did enough to change thinking, and rightly so. But I'm not ready to get off of the Djokovic is the Wimbledon king train. Not right now. I was also ready to kind of get off the Djokovic train at Roland Garros if he didn't show me motivation and fight and fire. Like, I was very much ready to be like, I think he's lost something mentally. And he showed me that he still has fight and fire. So that's good enough for me. And I think he'll work his way into this draw. And I'm going his way.
You make such a good case that now I'm wondering why Nadal didn't play. It's like, yeah, it's a skill game, and Nadal has skill, but he has to make his calculations, and it just paints a contrast. And normally Nadal is the one that if he's fit enough, he's going to compete. But obviously, with everything he's been through, he had to make his own calculation. But it does paint that contrast, right, between the decision making.
Yes, it does. Although, if you think about, like, from a skill standpoint, more specifically, Djokovic is one of the best spot servers in the world, and data backs that up. It was him and Hurkacz. Like, Tennis Insights published average distance from the sidelines on a first serve, and Hurkacz and Djokovic were by far the most accurate servers. That's just one example. So,
Yeah,
like,
and that's why Novak's won 7 Wimbledons.
yeah, yeah.
And
Nobody's been able to break him recently at Wimbledon
right.
in the bigger picture.
Yeah. His game is definitely suited to that. Of course, it's suited to all surfaces, but it's particularly suited to this surface. So yeah, I like it. And you know what? What other than like an injury that's gonna keep him out of the Olympics, which is actually a big consideration, but other than that, if he loses early in the first couple of rounds or mid rounds, nobody's gonna get mad at him, right? So in some ways, he doesn't have anything to lose.
Yeah, I do think he's eager to turn his season around and kind of say, like, I am, because the French wasn't exactly that. It wasn't it wasn't a silence the doubters run for Djokovic, because he did have to battle. He pulled out some fantastic victories, and turns out he won a match after tearing his meniscus. But I don't know. I do think that it's weird, Amy. The one thing is, like, I'm picking a guy to win Wimbledon who hasn't beaten a top 10 player all year.
Right. And that's another reason that I did not pick him. But, you know, I have to do my picks for my job, but
Yeah.
what I want to see and what I'm kind of the matchups that I'm rooting for, that's a different story. And that's what's more in my heart. So as a fan, um, so yeah, but
Well,
you make a good case. You make a couple of good points there, and I can't wait for the action to start. I mean, it's like a mystery that's going to unfold here.
yeah, me too. And it's always a special and unique slam. Those blockbuster matchups that we're hoping for. I mean, do we both have the top 4 seeds in the semis? If we're going Zverev
Well,
in the
I
four.
went for Hurkacz.
Oh, you did go for Hurkacz. Okay. I didn't
Yes.
realize that. Got it.
Yes.
Um, okay. Well,
But I have Alcaraz center. I have Alcaraz versus center.
yeah, which would be enormous. All right. I believe we've covered it all. It's going to be a very fun fortnight. Joel is there We missed him on this show.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for Joel being back at Wimbledon. Do you know when's the last time he was there? I feel like he might have been last year, but he might have taken a. I don't think he was there last year. We'll have to text him and ask.
Yeah. Yeah, he was usually a fixture every single year, but he hasn't made it back every single year. But maybe this is the start of a new run for him.
Yeah, I hope so. Envious, but also excited to get his take from the stands. I know center court at Wimbledon. It's a great press section. You're behind the baseline. You're kind of a perfect distance. You're not too close. You're not too far. So that will be Joel's vantage point. We will talk again soon as the tournament gets underway. Djokovic opening against Vit Kopriva. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. We hope you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you next time on the next episode of 3.